I'd like to call this meeting, the Committee of the Whole to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Chenoweth?
Present.
Mr. Hayes? Ms. Huth?
Here.
Ms. Pat?
Present.
Mr. Otto? Mr. Whalen?
Here.
Ms. Wyman?
Here.
Mayor Satterthwaite?
Here.
Are there any additions to the agenda? Corrections. Ms. Pat.
Thank you. Item 9, I'm sorry, I don't have it out yet, is the only item that the Finance Department needs to be here for. I was wondering if we could move it up so Ms. Seabrook doesn't have to sit through the whole meeting. Is it 9? I'm sorry. Yes.
When you say
Move it to, we move it to the beginning, to, right after public input.
Anybody? Okay. Any other changes or additions to the agenda? Staff report?
None at this time.
Minutes from the previous meeting. Is there a motion?
Move approval?
Second.
Motion and second. Any corrections, changes? Not. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next up, we have public input. I only have one form from the public. If there are others that would like to speak at tonight's meeting, fill out one of these forms and hand it to the clerk. First up, we have Lisa Truel from 714 West Iowa. Did you want to wait, Lisa, until the item? You want to speak now? Okay.
I'm going to be speaking tonight in regard to raising the fines, not only on the noise violations, but also on the underage drinking. And I think that, and it's critical to keep in mind, that the vote that you'll be taking in a few weeks from now, I believe it's sometime in April, to change the underage drinking fine is not a referendum on what is an appropriate age for the legal drinking age. The federal government, that issue, based on statistics that increasing the drinking age from 18 to 21 has saved 75,000 lives. This decision, although many of us personally may disagree with it, that being the legal age for drinking, was based on sound public health statistics. And therefore, it's imposed the fines on both sides of Wright Street to provide a united community effort among Champaign, Urbana, and the University of Illinois for alcohol education and its consequences. In fact, I'm not sure if the council members are aware that each year U of I students are given this pamphlet, The Law and You, and it is sponsored by the Champaign Police Department and the University of Illinois Police Department, and on the back lists all the fines, and it talks about alcohol poisoning and all, and it's part of their alcohol education program. And when I saw that and that Urbana wasn't included, and when I asked why Urbana wasn't included, bring attention to the fact that our fines were much lower. So I do agree that with the comments that the cruelty to animals and breaking and entry and offenses and offenses such like that should carry a much higher fine. But to say that you will not vote for the equalization, I believe, is a flawed argument. Increasing the fines for the cruelty to animals and breaking and entering seems much more appropriate to me. I do not agree with the increasing the fines by so much of the dollar amount is unreasonable, because I believe just because the city of Urbana has not revised their fine schedule to keep pace with today's earnings should not be the justification to vote again against this proposal. Please keep in mind that a $50 fine in 1905 would equal $961.35 in today's dollars. According to Sergeant Scott Friedland of the Champaign Police Department, he presented this statistic in his presentation at the community-wide symposium on alcohol and other drug issues in October of 2003. I think finally swayed me the most that is if the people who work with underage drinkers, that being the campus bar owners, the police departments, the law enforcement officers in Urbana, the University of Illinois, and the Champaign Police Department, the community alcohol treatment staff, the McKinley Health staff, the dean of students at the U of I, and the community task force on alcohol calling for an equalization. I think it's important that we say, they say this would help, that the fine should be equalized. I think that who are we to question their expertise in this area? They are the ones out at the consequences of underage drinking. I'm not. Of course, equalizing the fines cannot prevent all the tragedies associated with alcohol, but perhaps it will make many underage drinkers stop and think if they want to risk paying a fine of $180, we could then become part of the university and the Champaign Police Department's alcohol education program. I know that I would think twice about it. And lastly, as the coordinator in the neighborhood association, I hear many complaints about loud parties, and our council person, Esther Pat, has been very good at talking with the police and the mayor about enforcing the already existing ordinances, and the mayor has been very responsive, and the chief of police making some changes in enforcement policy, but I also think that increasing the fines would help with that matter, because I've had students, quote unquote, tell me, when I tell them the fines for the loud noise, say that's just, and we can get that by passing the hat. So I just want to thank the mayor and our council person, Esther Pat, who has listened to the West Urbana neighborhood. I think that people might say, well, you're just placating the neighborhood by increasing the fines, and if people can go off to wars and they can, drive cars, that they should be able to legally drink. But again, the issue, and it was hard for me at first, the issue is not about what is the legal age. This isn't about that. The federal government's already decided that based on public health statistics. It is about whether or not we want a united community. People who are working on the front lines of alcohol, drug education, are saying equalization would be helpful. And so I plead with you to keep that in mind instead of it's a referendum on whether or not that's the legal age should be anything different, and Urbana shouldn't be punishing 19 and 20-year-olds for drinking. That's not the issue. The issue is about having a concerted effort, these coming together and doing this. And I think if the people on the community alcohol and other drugs task force are asking for this, I think that we need to heed that message, regardless of what we personally feel about it. I think that that's just really important. And I do agree that the bottom line to all of these things is judicious enforcement. I think everyone saw the News Gazette article and saw that the number of underage drinking in Champaign was much higher than in Urbana, and one would say, well, that means we don't have. I think that as always, statistics can be skewed. I think it just reflects that there's more campus bars in Champaign than in Urbana. I think the Canopy Club is mainly the one bar that attracts a lot of underage drinkers. Many of the bar owners in downtown Champaign would say that that's not an issue for them. So again, I plead with you to not try and take alter the law in your own hands, and listen to what all agencies are saying, and the alcohol education people are asking is just an equalization of the fines so that we can have a concerted effort and have consistent consequences. Because as with kids, as with everybody, consistent consequences across the way, it really would matter. And I know that a lot of people have said, well, students don't know, they're not aware of the fines. I know a lot of the students that were aware of the fines. So obviously it is an issue. I think some students that get caught underage drinking aren't aware of the fines, but a lot of the students that I've talked to are aware of the fines. So, they don't know the difference anyways, and I think that we really need to listen to our chief of police, listen to the chief of police of the University of Illinois and the Champaign Police Department. I'd really like to see us do that. Thank you.
Committee members, Mr. Miller.
Yes. Did you say that in 1905 the fine was $50?
If this was a Champaign statistic, it was just in Champaign the fine was $50.
What was the fine for?
It was something associated with alcohol. It might have been underage drinking, but the equalization factor of was in today's dollar was $961.35 because a lot of
important question is, what was that fine for? Was it for public intoxication? Was it for underage drinking? What was it for?
I'm not sure exactly what it was for. You'd have
Okay.
to ask but I don't, that's not the context
Well,
which
it's
I
an
brought it
issue,
up.
it's an issue with me. Thank
Oh,
you, I'm
okay.
concerned.
Well, I brought it, I don't want to get you confused in the sense that I brought it up because a lot of people are saying this is an unreasonable
Okay.
increase in the
Well,
fine.
I have another question, too.
Sure.
Would you think that it would be reasonable, I mean, as a coordinator for the West Urbana Neighborhood Association, you think it would be reasonable to have an increase in the fine, perhaps not the same as Champagne's, but not necessarily following Champagne's lead to that amount, but to increase the fine?
Well, I think that I can only speak to what the law enforcement agencies have told me, said that it would be helpful if the fines were equalized, and also the community task force. They're asking
you.
for the equalization, and I heed their expertise.
Thank you.
Other questions from committee members? Thank you, Ms. True. Next up on the agenda, we moved item number 9 up. We have ordinance number 2004-03-05, an ordinance amending Chapter 14 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Urbana, Illinois, regarding the schedule of fees.
Yes, you have before you the annual review and revision of license and permit fees. The schedule is put on file for public inspection 30 days before final approval. The liquor fees and sewer taxes have both increased 3.5%. There's been a few other fines that have increased that were a number of years. Most of those were reviews and plat development fees. We did add one new fee, which is the telecommunications zoning review fee. Just read the amount from the Community Development Department, and I have that in there as $50, and it should be $150. So I'd like to make that correction. It's number 5, or it's 5 on the memo. And then we move that is for the review to, the zoning review as to where to put a telecommunications building, and then we move the actual application for the building itself to the building and structures section. Then I just included the revision of sewer tax rates that was previously approved. And then there's one correction of the weekend ballroom. They were approved in July 2002, and part of it was increased, but several of the figures did not get increased there. And you can see those. It's just for the weekends there.
Question, Ms. Wyman.
Yeah, I've had people, actually one person complain to me who owns in Urbana and pays all of the fees for operating a restaurant in Urbana, and with concern about the low cost or either low fee or absence of a fee for someone who just has a business on wheels, basically, out of a van and just has to rent a parking space. And actually, if you could point out where
Sure.
that is and
That's number 3 under general licenses, food handling licenses. It's on page 4.
okay.
What we call a food handling establishment, which is restaurants that don't move around. It's $60 a year for the license fee. If you have a mobile dispenser, it's $42.50.
Okay. Why is there a difference?
The difference generally is because usually mobile dispensers are not out there all year long, or they're not open the number of hours that an establishment would be.
Now, the food handling is the restaurants, those in permanent places. They, in addition to paying the food handling establishment fee, they of course also have to pay regular taxes, property taxes, and that food handling mobile dispenser wouldn't have to pay. Is that right?
That's true.
Okay.
Though if you're talking about a mobile dispenser that's on the street, they do have to, if they're at a meter, they have to pay for the time they're parked at a meter. Or if they're granted, they have to get permission to be wherever they are.
If they want to be at a meter, say all day, would they have to pay? They'd come down to the city building and pay just to rent the meter, or
Right.
for a full day. And how
They
much
usually
is that?
bag the meter,
Okay. And how?
$1 a day.
Okay. Thank you.
Questions from committee members? Is there a motion? Or does this even have a motion?
Oh, yeah,
We
we
need
need
to-
Put it on file, don't we?
to send it to, not the next meeting, but when is the meeting we need to send this to, Delora? It's
May 5th, or May 3rd? May 3rd.
Ms. Pat?
I move to send the annual revision of the fee schedule to the May 3rd City Council. Correction on page 8, that the telecommunications zoning review fee should be $150.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? Favor?
Ms. Williams, want to speak to that? You lost me.
In the presentation, we were told that there was an error in the document
yes,
we were given,
yes.
so I was just saying, correct the error and then put it on file for review.
Joanne?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This has nothing to do with the fine that we're talking about.
Oh, that fine issue, as you recall, was on a meeting a couple of weeks ago. Our meeting was a lengthy one at that time, and we didn't get to that particular agenda item. Steve Holtz is on vacation this weekend, and it's one that he's been working on, and it's the spring break. On a wait, so we thought it would be best to wait until the next committee meeting to have that on again. So we won't see that. It'll be, next week is the 5th Monday, so we won't see that for 3 weeks from today.
Thank you, Mary. You know, remember I was ill at that time.
Right.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
See that, May 3rd. Back to the regular course of agenda items. Next up, we have 5 Points East redevelopment agreement unstated. Mr. Walden.
This is a proposal to amend the existing 5 Points East redevelopment agreement. As you recall, last year, we entered into an agreement with the 5 Points East Developers, LLC, to acquire, demolish, remediate certain properties at 5 Points on the northeast corner of 5 Points. The agreement was drafted so that additional phases could be added as property was acquired. This addition to the agreement would provide for a Phase 2 of the development project, and the proposal is that we, as we did in the first phase, loan the developer TIF dollars to demolish the property and to remediate the property. It is anticipated that both of these phases and any future phases would, one of two future. One is that they'll be rolled into another development agreement when we know what the development is going to be, or they will just terminate, and then the monies that we have provided the developer will be repaid to the city. So one of those two things will happen. This is sort of a process. As you know, redevelopment projects does require some patience and perseverance on our part to get property assembled and demolished, and as opposed to projects on the periphery where it's much easier to pursue in a time. So we're continuing to work with these developers, continuing to work to get the properties demolished and the sites cleaned up environmentally. So what you have before you is a Phase 2 to that agreement. It provides some conditions. First is that the demolition would be complete. Actually expect it to take place much more quickly than that. The second is that the dollars that we loan the developer will be secured by a first mortgage on the property. So, we have a property that's worth $1, so we're secured as a first mortgage on that, which is very good in terms of security from our point of view. And then the terms and conditions of that loan will be the same as contained in the agreement as they were for Phase 1. So, again, this is another piece of our downtown development scheme, and so we're moving forward. I recommend approval of it.
Ms. Chenoweth.
Just so I understand, so phase 1, we did $88,000 loan for the demolition of Yanjing, and that has not been, and I can't remember if we had a development agreement with that where it was rolled in, may not be repaid if certain conditions are met. Is that the situation with 88?
No, we haven't taken that step yet.
Okay. So
I mean,
I get all of the development
right,
agreements
right.
mixed up in my head.
And these are
but-
particularly difficult because in the first agreement, Phase 1, we loaned up to $100,000 for the demolition and remediation of the first property. Only $88,000 was used, and that was on a reimbursable basis, as evidenced by to demolish and clean up the site. And we're doing the same thing on this Phase 2.
So the quotations around the word loaned, that was the thing that made me think, has this been loaned or is it a loan?
At the present time, it's loaned.
Okay.
And secured by a note and mortgage.
That's all my questions for.
Anticipate that somewhere down the road in this process, we'll have a master agreement that wraps all this together when we know the size and scope of the development that will occur there.
Okay. Yep, that's all.
Other questions for Mr. Walden? Does this require any action from us tonight, or?
I'd like to forward this to the April 5th council meeting. At that time, I will have completed the amendments and a budget amendment with it. But since Monday, and timing is everything in this business, I thought I should get it before you tonight.
Ms. Chenoweth?
I'd like to make a motion to forward this, the amended redevelopment agreement to City Council April 5th
Second.
with the recommendation.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion, Ms. Chenoweth?
Just briefly, I think later on today we'll be looking at the business survey results, which I found very interesting and give to council. And one of the things that's in the business survey is the need for locations in Urbana for businesses to expand and to have a diversity of locations, and particularly locations thoroughfares. And so I am excited that we've been able to work with developers to free up this corner property. We have a new Asian restaurant in Lincoln, and the demolition of a building that had kind of was past its prime on that corner. And so I think that I look forward to what will come at that corner, and I think that it was clear from the survey that businesses are looking at thing and that we need available properties in Urbana. So I thank the staff for their time on this.
Well,
Mr. Whalen?
I would just like to add that I too, I'm not quite excited, pleased to see that that's everybody's excited about everything today. But I am very pleased, as we all are, I'm sure, to see this improve, and these developers to spend money where their mouth is and their hearts are is very good, and the city to work with them, it shows that we're on a path of progress here. Congratulations.
thanks.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor of sending this to the April 5th meeting, say aye.
Aye.
We'll see the April 5th. We have 3 ordinances from Traffic Commission. Mr. Gray.
Yes, the Traffic Commission, again, was busy this past month, and before you are 3 ordinances. The first has to do with increasing the no parking area along the west side of Race Street, south of Florida. Basically, this is a safety suggestion, recommendation to help with the taper length, if you will, when one is heading south through the intersection, and there is parking permitted southbound west side area, but currently it's kind of a tight or short taper, and this would extend that taper to allow for a little better transition when you're on the outside curb lane getting toward the inner part of the lane on Gray Street. So the recommendation here is to increase no parking by 67 feet as depicted on a picture in the packet before you. I'll stop at this point.
Questions from committee members?
The second item then is something that Legal Division has pointed out a few months, and it's kind of a cleanup language, if you will, regarding loading zone, and technically The only thing that our ordinance, the way it is written, that can be loaded or unloaded is passengers, and we thought we would expand that definition, loading, unloading of goods, supplies, and deliveries, as well as passengers. So it's clearly kind of a language, clean-up language matter here.
Questions on this ordinance for Mr. Gray?
And thirdly, then, is an area that was brought to our attention a couple of months ago, and it's on Busey Avenue, just south of University Avenue, north of the Norfolk Southern tracks. And there's an area that people started parking in the area, and since it's close proximity to Carl, any parking sees the occasion, as we have done in other areas near Carl, to have this area metered. It's kind of a 90-degree type parking. Busey in this area has got Chip and Seal Street, and there's some wide shoulders, if you will, that allows for the head-end parking. And as it's turned out, it's been a lot of construction-related workers that have been using it. So we've kind of, if we proceed with, in fact, metering these 5 spaces, what will probably happen is Carl will ask that they be bagged for construction management team at Carl to use these spaces. But the recommendation here is to establish a parking meter zone in this block of Busey.
Ms. Chenoweth?
You know what the structures are that are directly east of the proposed parking meters?
Directly east, it's a little bit of a small, kind of a strip shopping business office area. In fact, one of the rental spaces is the McCarthy Construction Company, which is the general construction management firm for Carl with these large new expansions that are occurring here this year.
But none of this is retail?
There's no retail there right now. No. To my knowledge, I don't recall seeing retail currently.
Any other questions from committee members for Mr. Gray on these ordinances? Is there a motion? I believe we might be able to take these omnibus.
These to council with a recommendation for approval.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.